for
So I'll just go and turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you. So first, I just want to run through the agenda for tonight. So if you have any questions on the agenda, we do have several items on the consent agenda. There's one I want to point out on the consent agenda is the audit contract for next year, the 2019 audit contract. The audit committee did review this and approve it.
I had one question on that item. Did we put it out to RFP again, or was it just a?
It was a continuation of the existing contract. We didn't have time between the last audit closing out and time to do an RFP.
Okay.
And then you have a 3-year contract, and this is the second year for 3 years.
Okay.
So we will need the commission to sign that tonight after it's been approved. And then the presentations, Stoney, I did see Stoney here. There's a breastfeeding proclamation, and I'm not sure if you already had a commission that wanted to read that proclamation.
We have not discussed it yet, so I think there was some interest in from Commissioner Edwards, but she won't be here this evening, so we haven't talked about it yet. So if anyone's interested, just let me know. We'll figure out to around then.
Happy to do it.
Okay. Thank you. Sounds like you got it. Thanks, Jennifer.
It's very relevant in my house, right? Yes.
I think Jerry's asking to make sure all of our mics are on. Are they all on? They are.
Yes.
That one isn't the wireless one. I think you may need to turn it on if y'all need to speak.
Okay.
They just don't turn it on because it has a time, I think a certain amount of time that it will stay charged.
Yeah.
She's not close enough to it.
Maybe slide that one a little bit closer to you or Jasmine.
They're very sensitive, so they put them away from you
Yeah, not
on
too
purpose.
All right.
And then Rescue Ministries will be here tonight to talk about a recent award that they just received for Abba's House. The county does partner with Abba's House, so we will hear about that tonight. And then on new business, Commissioner Newman is attending the NCACC, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Conference. So we do need to delegate a voting delegate for tonight for that conference, which is going to be in Winston-Salem in Guilford County,
And,
August 22nd.
Greensboro, right?
That's right.
Greensboro.
Guilford.
Yes.
Greensboro.
Is are any other commissioners interested in attending? This is the annual meeting of the County Commissioners Association. Always.
I mean, I've been several years, and I think, we should be there every year. It's not, I mean, you're participating more than you are, it's not like you're driving, like, what we're doing, you're just basically getting educated, and hearing what everybody else, it's a great time there.
Yeah. Okay, so if anybody else is interested, you don't have to decide today, but let us know pretty soon so you can get registered for it. But I'm planning on going, so
Yes.
we'll have someone there.
Right, so there'll be a resolution that we will sign to make you the voting delegate.
Okay.
We'll have that.
All right, great.
And then there's a donation for new mothers, also some breast pumps that was donated to the Health and Human Services. We'd like to accept that donation that we can help our community. The last item would be House Bill 370. I think several commissioners and you will be that discussion tonight.
Okay. And that's just a discussion item, there's no action expected on that.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. So then we'll get into staff updates and lead off with Jennifer Buddy from the Tax Collections Office.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Commissioners. Jennifer Pike with Tax Collections. Now that we are through with fiscal 19, I thought this would be a good opportunity to run through a few things that you'll be seeing in the next month or so. And give us an opportunity to open some dialogue if you have any questions for me. So the topics that I'd like to cover today are the annual settlement, the order of collection, and the collection actions. So the annual settlement, there are three key components, and this requires approval. The annual settlement is required by statute after the end of a fiscal year. It's the summary of net levy and collections for Buncombe County and all entities we collect, bill or collect on behalf of. Also included in that is a report from North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles for the revenues they bill and collect for registered motor vehicle property taxes. The second component of that is a list of unpaid prior year property taxes. So this would be for tax year 2018, that are left outstanding as of June 30, 2019. The third component is a list of taxpayers who've been found to be insolvent, and this is uncollectible, and this only applies to personal property. So for example, if a business closes and we cannot locate the owner or find the property, then we deem them to be insolvent. And this only applies to tax year 2013 and prior. So this is not recent years. So the annual settlement will be on the August 6th agenda. So a few key points for the annual settlement tax year 2018. We achieved a collection rate of 99.89%. The net levy was $185,929,736. That left an uncollected amount of $201,913. I'd also like to point out that of that levy, we're approaching $1 million at 0.5% of that levy at $929,648. So this is an illustration of where Buncombe fell with the collection rate for the 2 years prior to the most recent fiscal year. So fiscal years 2018 and 2017, among the 11 largest North Carolina counties, this is where we fell. And I'm very proud of my staff for the hard work they do to get us second in line amongst the 11 largest counties. I'd also like to point out that the average of the 11 largest counties is 99.39%. So that's about 0.5% lower than we achieved this year.
I have a question. So does that mean that of all of the property taxes that we are forecasted, that we believe are due to be paid, we collect 99.8% of those funds?
So these are regular property taxes. So this is not registered motor vehicle. It is real property and personal property. And this is an actual. This is by June 30. This is what we collected of the net levy. Does that answer
Yeah,
your
and so of all the taxes that we believe are owed in those categories, we collect 99.88% of those.
Yes, and 9988 was 2018's rate.
Okay, that is so impressive.
On the vehicle side, that basically comes through whenever they re-tag the vehicle.
It does, yes.
So
So
that's almost 100% here.
it is 99.5 average, because they do have some plates that are limited registration plates that they can't collect. Any other questions on that one? The next topic is order of collection. So immediately following the approval of the annual settlement, we move to an adoption of the order of collection. This is what gives me the authority and actually commands me to collect property taxes for the coming year. And it's very specific. This is verbatim on our order of collection, and it is what is listed in statute that should be included. I also have an oath with my bond and my appointment that I follow the law. I swear to follow the law, and I carry out my responsibilities impartially and without influence. This order of collection, I also like to point out, covers Buncombe County and all the municipalities and districts we collect on behalf.
The only thing in the tax bill, and I know it's part of the collective amount, and I sit here and I look back and I heard things that the people have, especially the ones that are on totally fixed income, the $600-700 a month fixed income. People that's had the property forever and are trying to make payments. If they're trying, we need to try to figure out how to help them better. We got to turn it over to an attorney, and it costs them 4 times as much to be able to keep the property. That's one of the things that I see in anything. And know, we're 99.8%, and that's a great deal, okay? But there has to be a little help somewhere. For this small group of people. If they got $40,000 or $100,000 worth of land, and they have no money, that's a different story. But if they just have a mobile home or whatever, and they're struggling, as Keith told me in that meeting that day, or one meeting, he just told me, the gentleman said, if the taxes go up, that he's going to have, he's peanut butter and jelly or something, but he's going to give up the jelly. And we got to figure the people, because once this turned up, one of the attorneys here in town, it costs a fortune. And that's, we just got to be careful.
We do. And
Well, I'm
we,
saying that we're looking careful, okay?
I understand, and we do encourage payment arrangements, and we.
But if they can't make it, we've got to figure out a way to help them get through to another point.
Yes.
Especially this one little route down here, and that's about 1,500. So that's where I'm at.
If I know those, then I can try to work out a payment arrangement with them that fits. But what my concern is, I don't want them to perpetuate the problem of, you know, if the taxes grow with each passing year on their outstanding amount. So I wouldn't want them to be upside down in taxes.
You know, a problem I have with it is that we have a group of lawyers out here who are just, they're no more than ambulance chasers. And, you know, when I see people, if they're delinquent on a $400 lot, and they end up, when one of the lawyer gets a hold of it, they have to pay almost $3,000 to get that lot cleared. I got a problem with that. And then the lawyer they're working with, that all he has is a cell phone and a post office box, not even an office. You know, to me, we're taking advantage of poor people here. And I agree, it's great to have the 99%, you know, deal, but morally, I have a problem with that. You know, if we're taking advantage, you know, it's, some people struggle. You know, everybody's not fortunate, they have to struggle. But I think we could do a better job of helping these people out, because it's a small amount. But when I see, you know, the leeches out there who are taking advantage of it, and this is something we need to look out for. I mean, you know, I have a moral problem with that. It's just not fair.
And I understand your concern, and please know, that's not our first option. We exhaust every collection action remedy we have available to us before we take that step. If a taxpayer is still in communication with us and we're working with them, then we don't take that step. And then, so if an attorney is, if an account is referred to an external attorney, they still have a period of time to respond to that attorney or contact us and begin working with us, and that attorney is out of the picture now. So that is.
I thought once the attorney's in the picture, it's the attorney's deal.
Once the attorney has invested time and has accrued fees, then the attorney takes ownership. But if the taxpayer contacts us once they receive that attorney letter, then we do make an effort to work with them.
When do we turn this over to an attorney?
Once we have exhausted the collection actions that we can take, so for
What's the time frame?
It depends.
So can I jump in real quick? Because I think what Jennifer is also saying to you, Commissioner, we've looked at that issue as well. The time frame depends, but it only goes to an attorney once that citizen has stopped talking to us completely. So we do set up a payment plan, and if they're making payments, and we make a payment plan that they can afford. So it's not, if you have a $400 bill, then we can have it where you can afford to pay. So I've actually talked with Jennifer about this specific issue because you guys have raised it before.
Right.
And we have worked with Jennifer to make sure that we contact the citizen, we work with the citizen. If the citizen does not respond to us, and I think that is over a period of 2 or 3 months before they stop talking to us. If you don't hear from them at all, then it goes to the attorney. When the attorney sends a letter, many times we will get a response from the attorney because that is official. They'll get a response. If they do contact us in that time period, the attorney can give them 7, and we're going to increase that to 14 days. So they get 14 days from the time they get the letter from the attorney to respond. If that happens, there's no fees on the attorney's part, the cost doesn't go up. but they need to talk to us, is when they stop talking to us, and when they ignore letters and calls from our staff, is when it goes to the attorney's office. So I would agree with you about the moral obligation to not run people out of their homes, not try to foreclose. That is our very last resort. Our goal, more than anything else, is to talk to our citizens. So the word, we're telling you this now, you can get the word out, but this would also come to the board again on August 6th. And we will stress, please call our office, do not hide, do not duck. We're not trying to do anything to you other than to collect the debt. And that collection can stay within our office without incurring any fees if you would just talk with us. And at least try to make contact. Yes, sir.
I did know a person that did contact and tried every way in the world. He'd already paid half his papers. That's where he was at. Did he probably do everything right? Probably not. But he's just a citizen of the county, and he had half of them paid. Then Buncombe County would not accept any more from him. It all had to go through the attorney. And that's just like Al said there a minute ago. Then it skyrockets. So then he has to work 3 times as hard to be able to just pay his property taxes, stay in his property, than he did before. And that's when you're a landscaper, you don't do much in wintertime. Okay. And that's just the way it was, and we've got to figure out how to fix this mess. You weren't around here during these problems. I understand it. All right? Neither one of you ladies. So We have problems. So I've got a question. Why do we have to take it to, and I understand some people are going to hide and not communicate, but why do we have to take it to an outside attorney? Could we not use attorneys that are inside?
One thing, in my experience with the county, when I started with the county in 2001, I was attached to the tax office, and I did some of these foreclosures for the county at that time. Many times, if you're in-house, and when I was an in-house lawyer, you send out a demand letter. I do a title search, find out where these people are. He comes on county letterhead, and it still gets ignored. So sometimes, many times, you refer it out, and once they get a letter from a lawyer with real letterhead, they'll start communicating and pay. So sometimes it's very helpful.
But do we have to charge that much? You know, we need to figure out how to take that letterhead from another attorney, whether it's her, you, or any other attorney, and have a letter sent, and if they respond to it, yeah, let's pay a little bit to that attorney for what he's done. But he don't deserve $3,000 or $4,000 on a $400 bill.
Oh, I understand. I understand. I mean, that's the difficulty is between the compassion piece and the collector's oath.
So, and I understand you having to play.
So is there a way to just contract a demand letter instead of turning it over to an attorney for collection? Just to contract with an attorney to do a demand letter to get someone's attention.
In a sense, I would be reluctant to do that because then you're asking the lawyer to use their position and letterhead to conceivably give an empty threat. I mean, I would, as a lawyer, would never want to send a demand unless I was fully prepared to follow up on it.
How many times does this happen a year that gets to that point?
So for this fiscal year we just completed, there were 437 accounts that went through an attorney referral. And that's consistent with the prior 2 years. We was 427.
So how do we measure that? How do we measure the success of that? I mean, we can talk through this all day long, but somewhere we gotta have a measurement of it. And so how do we measure the success of that?
I think we need to measure metrics on how many of those that are referred are actually paid, or how many of them make it to the next step, which is the actual foreclosure process. And compared to what we refer, the number of properties that actually make it all the way through a confirmed sale of a foreclosure process are very low in percentage. So for example, in the last 18 months, so January 2018 through June 2019, the actual confirmed sales foreclosures, there were 5 properties that were land only, 4 properties that were, the owner was in another state, 2 properties were condemned or uninhabitable, and 1 property was abandoned. So those were the only confirmed sale foreclosures for the previous 18 months.
So when you run the numbers on those, if 430 or so are getting referred, that's 0.3% of all property tax bills. If a dozen are actually leading to foreclosure or condemnation, that's less than 0%. So I think when we think of it sort of on the systems level, certainly we want to be thinking about the individuals on the other side of those letters. I think when we think about it on the systems level, it seems like it's working in many of the ways we're intending it to.
But why couldn't we do what is it, an RFP? Since we're talking about such small numbers, why couldn't we let the law firms bid on that and take the lowest bidder, the ones that would give us the best deal, rather than to have all these sharks out there now? Wouldn't it make more sense and be a lot more efficient?
We recently did an RFQ for
RFQ, okay.
attorney services,
Mhm.
and we had 5 respondents. We've been using 3, so we have 5 respondents, and we'll be entering those 2 additional ones in the rotation.
So we have done exactly what you suggested, is to put out that service for bid, and we got qualifications, the RFQ's qualifications, to make sure they can carry and do the work that we're asking them to do. In the past, we were using 3, so they're not all sharks out there, it seems that way, but we actually have a contract with 3 in the past, and we will rotate. So for 12, we will do 3, and you get the first one, and then you'll get, we'll continue going through our rotation. We now have 5 that has responded in town that can do that work, so we would spread those 12 amongst 5. The good news would be, if there's good news here, is that because there's 5, there's no one person that can go after somebody as a shark. We can share that load out amount it. But again, our first goal would be to meet with the taxpayers, talk with the taxpayers. And as Jasmine said, it's a very small percentage. When you look at the number of bills that we are sending, and then the unique bills, 1,000 or so bills that actually went to our collection status, if you would give us the name of the ones, if you hear of anybody out there that has this opportunity to work with us, please let us know. But that's what our goal would be, not to put anybody at their house, but how can we work with them
I did do
to
that.
get that?
This was like last year, I did come forward with it, so it didn't happen. It was already in the attorney's hands, and it's just, I am, you know.
So the message we need to get out early is before it gets to that point, come talk to us.
Well,
We'll work on that.
And then there's an understanding, but we're saying that we're getting an understanding.
Right.
But there's 258,000 people out there that probably a tenth of them do have none. Just like Jasmine said, we broke down to hardly 0 in your areas. Yeah, but we need to try to help the people, especially the people that worked all their life, live here. The property tax now, there was a gentleman in West Asheville a few years back, told me, he says, it took me 30 years to pay for my house. 30 years. He says, now I pay 40 years every 5. Just the property tax from where he was. So we can keep going up in certain areas, but these people that retire and work all their life for their homes, and now it's just like me, we're both, in the 70s, and it's, I'm going to do what I can. That's one of my goals. People say, well, what kind of goal do you have? My goal is for the people here to figure out how they can stay on their own. I saw a man and a lady in an old truck over at next door one day, and she didn't look good at all. They'd been sleeping in the McDonald's parking lot. They'd been evicted from property tax bill on their home. It was a trailer. Okay? And they were standing in the McDonald's parking lot and using ice to cut because they're insulin. So I give them my money, not county money, to try to help them. And I know you have to guess this, we got all these things, we got all the perfect pictures, but they don't know. I just want them to be able to have a place to play down, these people, I mean, they were there. So I'm gonna get off my thing, because they kind of get all
Well,
of
I
it.
think I think if people have specific suggestions on a different process, that would be, we can't just, and that's a very compelling story, but we need just to have a consistent process. It needs to be a reasonable process and a compassionate process. But if people have specific suggestions on how to do it differently in terms of the lengths of time and things like that, I think that would be our role, is to kind of make some specific changes to the process if we think that we need to do that. So,
Well, is data available about for the 400 or so that actually are referred to attorneys, do we have data available about actually the amount that's in question? Because it would seem, I would imagine that the logic would follow if someone's struggling that much that they might have a lower property value and the tax amount might actually be a smaller dollar amount. So that might be an interesting, to really drill down among the 1,300 and then the 400 of if it's $200 that's sitting between them, keeping their house and losing their house. That's a very interesting policy question for us to think about.
Yeah, and I mean, you could very easily just spread that out. It could include the attorney costs, it could include costs to date, it could include those things, you have to balance, compassion and process, because I don't like my bill, but I have to pay it, but if I ever had a situation where I got in trouble, I would sure want people to work with me. So it's been a great conversation. I appreciate it, Mike, bringing it up.
Me too. One other question. If people do have a payment plan or fall behind on it, do we charge interest on that, or is it just?
State law is interest. Interest will continue to accrue until the bill is paid.
Okay. And what's the interest rate?
So the first month is 2%. Every month thereafter is 0.75%.
So over an annual rate, it would be about
9%?
9%. Okay. And that's a state policy.
That is state policy, yes.
All right, well, thank you for the update. Again, a good, complicated discussion.
So, if I may just make a couple more notes. So, we've talked about the number of tax bills, and I wanted to touch on the unique bills with collection options. We do explore the information we have available. We do use some services that help us find information, contact information, banking information, to try to avoid getting to the last step. We try very hard to avoid that, and sometimes we simply can't. And the payment arrangements are pretty popular, over 3,200 of those. And I equate those similarly to a mortgage, where you make a monthly mortgage payment, and part of your mini mortgage payments include property tax and insurance. So we do try to extend that option. And it seems to grow with every passing year. We continually try to get payments. One other note, there's going to be some new monthly reporting coming your way. And I'll be back in front of you in August so we can walk through that to see what's going to be happening in the future. Are there any other questions I can answer for you? Be happy to.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The next two items on your agenda. And these are both related to affordable housing efforts taken on by Buncombe County. The first item is related to the Old Haywood Road project. At your early June pre-meeting, Rachel Nygaard and I provided an update on the activities of the Affordable Housing Committee. So you've seen some of this information, at least in brief previously. This project is an Asheville Area Habitat for Humanity project. It is targeting individuals with an area median income of less than 80%. And the project includes 98 homes. There'll be 32 single-family homes and 66 townhome units in the total project. There's a portion of it that we're focusing on both today and then when this item comes before you again at your first meeting in August, is the phase 1 section. So this is a 38-unit portion of the larger development that includes both single-family and townhome units. The construction is actually already underway on site. They are working on site already. And that construction is scheduled to be completed in the spring of 2023. It's a pretty quickly moving project. With Habitat for Humanity, we find that the units are able to actually produce about 15 a year within a project, largely the result of volunteer hours that go into the projects. So the total project cost for phase 1, which is again that first portion of the project, is $6.8 million. Through the FY 2019 Affordable Housing Services Program, the project and Habitat for Humanity received $240,000 in funding to support that portion of phase 1. They came back earlier this year and requested additional funding to support all 38 units in the entire phase 1 of the project. And that request, after meeting with them over several months, ended up being $680,800. And this breaks down kind of how the currently approved award versus the additional award requests are laid out. And so in the initial award request, it was to support the 24 of the 38 units in phase 1. This is a combination of a construction loan with some down payment assistance. And the purposes of down payment assistance are to reduce the burden to the home buyer in their ability to get into a mortgage. So it's used to offset the mortgage cost to the home buyer. And so they received the award of $240,000. They have requested funds beyond that to support all 38 units initially, but the Affordable Housing Services Program is a limited pool of funds, and after assigning other allocations, that was the amount that we had available to support the project at the time. They came back and requested additional funding support to support all 38 units, and after conversations with the Affordable Housing Committee, they determined that probably the best course of action to provide that support would be through additional down payment assistance and not a combined construction and down payment loan. And what they were attempting to do in those discussions between Habitat and the committee was to keep the project within the parameters of the Affordable Housing Services Program. And that program allows up to $20,000 per unit as support and down payment assistance. And so through the addition of these funds, it will provide up to that maximum so that they're able to reach 80% AMI, possibly lower with that additional down payment assistance. So the Affordable Housing Committee did make a formal recommendation, which will be coming to you officially at your first meeting in August, and that would be to provide funding support in the amount of $680,800. This would be a down payment assistance loan, and it would maintain the $20,000 per unit cap, which is established under the existing program. At your August 6th meeting, we will have Asheville Area Habitat for Humanity present so that they can present more detailed information on the project, including plans, that you can see the layout of the project and that sort of thing, and also give you information about their need and why they sought the additional funding. We would also come forward at that time with a community development loan agreement. We've been in process between county legal staff and with Habitat to develop contract language which would be agreeable to both sides. So we'll be bringing the information about the request, the recommendation of the committee, and also a draft loan agreement that would approve that allocation of funds.
Any questions? All right, thanks, Matt.
And we'll jump into the next item, which is related to home award. And so, again, we touched on this when we were at your meeting in June, but the home funding is federal funding that comes through the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium. Just wanted to touch on the fact that that is a 4-county consortium. The lead entity is the city of Asheville, so they actually receive the funds, and they administer those funds. They receive approximately $1.3 million a year and have for the last several years with some $1.3 million a year in home funds. And there is some variation in that. It's an average. They received a little less than that in the last year. And they have representation from all participating jurisdictions. Currently, we have 2 county staff that sit on the consortium and vote on projects as they come through. So the home program, just for a little bit more detail, as I mentioned, it's a HUD program. These are grant funds on a reimbursable basis. They are for affordable housing efforts. They can fund things, new construction, rehabilitation, down payment assistance. So they do some similar things to what we're able to do with our county affordable housing services program. They do have some other activities that they undertake that we don't directly. But it's an opportunity for our nonprofit agencies, for-profit agencies, and community housing development organizations to access more federal dollars. So in the current home award, which this process took place over the last several months, was in the spring. They began taking applications in January. Decisions about allocations through the consortium were made in late April. The funds available were just a little over $1.1 million. The funds that were requested approached nearly $3 million. So there's a discrepancy always between what is requested and what is awarded. The Buncombe County projects, so projects are identified by their location. Buncombe County projects that were identified, one was selected, receiving $312,000 in support through the home award. There were $756,000 in requests that came in, so that was the selected project, and that was the funding that they received. We brought all of that information about the projects that were both presented and that which received the award to the Affordable Housing Committee. And the committee made a recommendation about the existing budgeted home match. So each year the county budgets funding for home match, and that annual allocation is $75,000. We also have program income and then in certain cases unused home match. So we might have awarded home match and then they actually didn't draw that down because it's reimbursement based. So that rolls forward in the fund. So there was $123,214 available to allocate to projects. And the Affordable Housing Committee is recommending $87,908 be applied to a Workforce Homestead Incorporated project known as the Jasper Project. It's a multifamily rental construction project. It did receive home funding. They requested $400,000. They received and were allocated $312,000, and this is the balance to get to their initial request, was the recommendation from the committee. This project is seeking tax credits, and we should know in mid to late August if that tax credit application is approved or not. It is a $15 million total project. Their tax credit request is over $10 million. The information about the full scope of the project and all of the funding that they're leveraging together would come through to you when this item would come before you at your first meeting in August. The other project that they recommended, again because they had a pool of $123,000 available to allocate to home eligible projects, was to apply the balance of that fund, which was $35,306, to a National Area Habitat for Humanity project, the Brevard Road project. And this is a homeowner construction project. So again, it's building single-family homes. They have requested $100,000 to support 4 units with down payment assistance, and this was the balance available. So they can leverage that as possible in order to support as many units as they can produce. Together, this allocation would support just over 23 units. The Jasper project is a 100-unit project, and then the Asheville Area Habitat for Humanity is a 4-unit project. Again, very different projects, one being multifamily versus single-family construction. And so what we would be bringing forward to you at your first meeting in August is, again, the recommendation from the Affordable Housing Committee and a resolution to authorize the county manager to enter into those agreements and contracts necessary to distribute those funds to those agencies. Again, this is a reimbursement-based request, and they would produce information about the work and the costs before that funding would be released to the entities. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this project as well.
All right, thanks, Matt. I think we're good.
update on the Sustainability Office and some of the work we've been doing and some of the things that we've got coming down the pipeline over the next several months that we want to make you aware of. So just as a brief introduction, obviously there are two primary commissioner-adopted resolutions that drive the vast majority of the work that we do in the Sustainability Office. We have a 2% annual carbon reduction goal for our internal county operations, and we've adopted a 100% renewable goal for county operations by 2030 and for all of Buncombe County by 2042. So just some brief accomplishments. We're currently ahead of our 2% goal. Our 2% goal will put us at around 10% right now, and we're actually trending at about 16%. So very happy to report we're doing well on that, and we're ahead of where we anticipated we would be. We've leveraged about $300,000 in grant funding, and the vast majority of that has gone to that next bullet point, which is weatherization of over 370 homes in Buncombe County. That's a program that we're very proud of and something that's made a real impact in a lot of people's lives. We've done an additional 28 other energy projects in commercial facilities, including county facilities and some of our community public agency partners. Those projects have essentially offset about 920 metric tons of CO2. That's not a number that really resonates with people, so we like to use equivalents in terms of, what does that equal, how many trees, or things like that. It's equivalent to approximately 1 million pounds of coal being burned. So it's a pretty significant offset with those projects. In addition, it's about $88,000 in annual energy savings for these organizations combined, and each project has an average payback of less than 36 months. The reason I point that out is just to emphasize that we really do focus on not only those that have a good environmental impact, but are financially sound projects as well, and pay for themselves and have a good return on investment. So obviously one of the other significant undertakings right now is working towards our 100% renewable goal.
These are my questions before you.
Absolutely.
So the 28 energy projects, those are all projects that are on, that are not directly on county buildings, like the fire stations, or is it a mix of like county buildings and fire stations and other
It's a mixed bag, yes.
Okay, it's a mixture.
Most of them are community, most of them are fire stations and things like that. There are a handful of county projects that we've done, chiller replacements. Actually, this building is one of them. We did an LED retrofit in this facility. So it's a mixed bag, but I would say it's probably 80% community-based as opposed to internal.
Thanks.
You have a question, sir?
I just, that question there, what about this building?
We did an LED retrofit in this building 18 months ago, give or take. What is that? Lighting retrofit, sorry, I apologize. Yeah, no, it's my fault for assuming, nobody lives in my world, so not everybody gets those acronyms. But yes, it's just it's lighting upgrades to reduce our overall energy consumption. That's frankly the low-hanging fruit nowadays is these LED projects, because they're great payback and they look to reduce energy really quickly. So moving on to the renewable roadmap. As you know, the commission approved a contract with the Cadmus Group to assist in creating a plan in terms of helping us determine how we can reach our 100% renewable goals. That was a contract with a 50-50 sort of combined effort between the city and the county. The very basics of the plan are to, again, establish baseline energy data for local governments as well as for the entire community, because we have a community-wide goal. Look at our projections for future energy demand and what that energy mix is as well, nuclear, coal, gas, et cetera, as well as to clearly design strategies for reaching our renewable goals and then model what the potential impacts of those strategies will be. And then last and not least is the cost implications of those strategies. So,
Yeah, I just want to make one comment on that.
Sure.
We're very careful as we look at the payback on these, because that original program had some replacements that the payback was just, we wouldn't want to do it.
Sure, absolutely.
And so, I think it's good to have some reporting on, to show that we're actually paying attention to the cost implications on the strategies. Just because we pay somebody to come in and tell us that, hey, you ought to do all this, it takes 40 years to get your money back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even if you don't know anything, you know you're not going to do that. You would do it with your own money. So
It is, yeah, it's a critical part of the plan to have those cost implications. Obviously, some of them are simple estimates because we don't know this is a long-term plan, so we don't know what the future holds in terms of cost estimates for things like, solar PV. But we do know that the trend says that they don't get more expensive over time, they're getting less expensive. So we hope that that continues.
Yeah, and I just think we need to really, take we got new staff, and county manager, new assistant county manager, we need to take a really hard look at that Cadmus report and make sure that it's not an end all to everything.
Oh, absolutely, agreed. So it's obviously the report itself is a very extensive document, so we're not going to cover everything that is in the report right now. But I did want to give you sort of a high-level overview of what you can kind of expect to see outside of just the basic energy data and just telling you where we are and what our power mix looks like and things like that. We essentially broke the strategies down into bundles, sort of as you can see, a pathway A, B, C, D, to sort of break this out and say, here's the high-level strategies that we think can help us reach these goals, things that we're currently doing and policies that we currently have in place. For example, the landfill project is going to be a significant project for us. We've got very streamlined permitting inspections, and we can model out what we think those impacts are going to be. We're looking at other highly feasible local actions that we think we can take, alternative purchasing options, and then of course those state and utility level actions, because we are a very heavily regulated state in terms of our energy. We have a regulated monopoly in terms of our utility here, so that does present its own unique challenges. So these are just some basic examples of things like installing solar on county facilities, bulk purchasing, rec purchasing, power purchase agreements. Again, the plan will be much more detailed. I just wanted to give you sort of high-level overview of the types of things that you can probably expect to see in this document. And then, of course, those higher-level actions that would require state and utility assistance. Yes?
And the pathway to 100% would involve all of these pathways?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
gotcha.
There's no single trick
Right.
to accomplishing a goal of this magnitude.
Right.
Certainly, and what the plan does is sort of take each individual pathway, model it out for you to say, we think if we were to implement these packages of policies and strategies, we could get to 5% or 10% or et cetera, and then moving along through each of those to say, all of these bundled together, we feel like this is where it can take us.
Great.
Right.
Is there a guarantee on that?
Absolutely, that is true. There is no guarantee. We do not know what the future holds.
So this is a big step from the last time we had over the whole conversation about this.
So
Exciting.
we can waste money with no guarantee.
Jeremiah,
Yes.
touch on something that reminded me. Where are we with the solar farm, with the trash dump?
It's an excellent question, and essentially, we're still in the due diligence period, so when we signed the contract with Duke, they requested a 2-year due diligence period, which we're about halfway through. We do know that the project is moving forward as expected. Everything looks good up to this point. If I were to ballpark it, based on the conversations that I've had with Duke Energy and their reps, I would say probably middle of 2020 is when we can really expect, boots on the ground, so to speak, but it's still a bit of a ballpark. They've got their engineering firm out there currently doing assessments on the facility. There's the interconnection process is what's a big holdup. I'm sure, Brownie, you've dealt with this a lot. Interconnecting to Duke's grid, you have to go through a queue, and even when it's Duke doing it, you still have to get in the back of the line. So they have to apply for connecting to their own grid and still have to get in the back of the line. Explain that one to me, but that's the way it works. And that process for a utility scale size project tends to take 2 years, and I think that's really why they gave themselves that due diligence period. So, but it's moving along nicely, and as far as we can tell, it's still about the anticipated size was about a 5-ish megawatt project, which is very sizable, and it's still online to be about that size. Yes, ma'am.
This, I guess, would relate to pathway A or B, but excuse me, are we currently, as a standard practice, kind of assessing new capital projects the county's getting involved with? I'm thinking.
You're thinking what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
That's what you're doing. Yeah.
No, wait, okay, great. 'Cause
No, absolutely. As
Yeah.
a part of this entire process, and what we'll be bringing to the board will be suggestions on internal policies for new construction, renovation. How do we handle that going forward knowing that we have these aggressive renewable energy goals. And so, you know, we'll put together a package of options for the board to look at and say, you know, this is how far we want to take this in terms of what our internal requirements are for new construction or roof replacements or things of that nature. We obviously don't have the legal authority to let anyone else do anything. But for our own internal facilities, we can make those as stringent as we want, so.
Right. And then we also, I mean, like with the early childhood, for instance, the county's investing $500,000 in the construction of a new early childhood facility. I don't know whether, I have no idea whether that would be a site where solar would make sense, but at least flagging questions like that as we pursue different
Absolutely, and
projects.
that's another part of, I think, that look at what our internal policies are. If we're going to invest in construction, whether it's our facility or someone else's, do we want to make that a part of the process? Obviously, I believe that we do going forward, since we do have not just an internal goal, but a community-wide renewable energy goal. But yeah, those are absolutely policies that we'll be bringing to the board in the coming months to suggest how we move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think when we look at new construction, we're just going to be really careful that, I mean, you can put solar on something that's got horrible windows in it, and you know, or the quality of air, and it's terrible because the HVAC is poor, you know, but you have renewable energy on it. So this is we're going to be very, very careful with this when it's applied to new construction.
New construction?
And upgrade, you know,
Yes.
as you use the term retrofit. I mean, you retrofit solar on a building, the building's not, you know, I mean, the quality of the air is terrible, and the windows are, you know, need to be replaced.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I will say that the Sustainability Office's perspective on any kind of renovation is that we focus on efficiency first. It's the biggest bang for your buck. And as you know, very rightly pointed out, if you put solar panels on a building that's just leaking air through the windows, you're wasting everybody's time and money. So I agree with you completely, and that will be a part of the assessment process. Is, you know, as we look at what facilities make the most sense for us, we'll be looking at, you know, are there opportunities for efficiency first?
One more question. We're paying somebody to tell us what we think we need to know. But aren't we paying somebody else out in Colorado $70,000 a year that was part of the energy board?
If I remember correctly, in 2013, I believe what you're referring to is a group called the Shaw Group. They came in and did energy audits for a number of county facilities. I don't remember the cost. It's been
Well, I thought that one was for free, because when I talked to the dude, they said that one was for free, but now we stepped up and now we're paying them to do it. Are we paying them to do it, Brian?
I think the Shaw Group, well, they were from Colorado, they're from Charlotte, aren't they? And I think Duke rebates did cover the cost of that, if I recall. I think what you may be thinking of, Mike, is we did pay the Rocky Mountain Institute, but that was a one-time deal a couple years ago, so that's not an ongoing thing.
So how much are we having in your department today? Money?
How much? What is my budget?
How much in your budget is county?
The Clean Energy Fund budget is $350,000. That does not include operating expenses, which is essentially just my salary. So there's not a lot in addition to that. The Rocky Mountain Institute was a joint effort between the city, the county, and Duke Energy to create the Energy Innovation Task Force and to facilitate that process.
Well, what I understood, Duke Energy's one that brought this task force in the store. They asked to bring it in, did it because of their need in this area. So how long does it stay? That's what I want.
Sure. Well, the next steps for us in terms of what we do with this renewable energy report, the report itself will be available for public comment. We have a draft of it that we'll be putting on our website to just get some additional community feedback. We've had a number of stakeholder engagement groups and public input sessions up to this point, but this will be sort of that last opportunity, putting it out there for folks to have some opportunity for public input. And obviously, you know, the plan comes up with a variety of strategies. So what we're looking at next is to develop an integrated implementation plan. Obviously, with input from the remainder of the staff that's going to be working with us, general services, finance, budget, et cetera. And what we're really focusing on at this point are the immediate actions that we can take to start making a dent in this goal. And that is primarily to focus on site assessments. So looking at, where does renewable energy make the most sense? We're looking at bringing in other public partners that potentially look at doing this in a aggregated way. So looking at essentially bringing in school systems, AV Tech, city, county facilities, with the goal of really essentially just looking at economies of scale, because the more you can do, the lower the cost you can get for a lot of these projects. So doing them as one-offs can tend to be a significantly more expensive venture. So we're looking at potentially bringing in as many public partners as we can, doing on-site, doing facility assessments, looking at structural assessments and things of that nature, making sure that any facility we are attempting to do this on makes sense, both from a structural standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint, and try and get the best price that we can for doing these types of projects, do an RFP, and then potentially look at bringing that back through management and to the board to say, here's what we think our options are for what we can do in the immediate future, and move forward from there. I know you've already asked your questions, but if you have more, well, let me stick around.
And Jeremiah, so the plan is to do this request for proposals for renewables on public properties, and to issue that by the end of the summer. Is that correct?
Optimistically, yes. I would love to have this done by the end of the summer.
Well, I think
that's
that's
a firm date. I'm in trouble.
Sure. And issuing the RFP doesn't obligate the county to do anything. It's basically asking the marketplace to, all right, here's properties that we think could be feasible. So tell us what's possible. And what would it cost? And what are the savings? Basically just bring us your best ideas, right?
That is absolutely correct.
Right.
Yeah, none of the county nor any of the partners that would be involved in the RFP process would be obligated to move forward with any of those projects. It's just simply to get a really good, firm idea of what's possible in the facilities that we have that will make the most sense for renewable energy.
Right. Well, I think that is very exciting. I think we won't know what we're going to get until it comes in, right? But I think it's exciting that we're talking to these other public agencies in the community, the county schools, AV Tech, others. We were just talking about AV Tech's budget the other day in a small meeting. They have about a $6 million budget. They spend $1 million of taxpayer money a year just on utilities. It's like 20% of their budget. It's kind of hard to understand.
But the first
so
shut a building down in summertime instead of letting it.
Well,
run air conditioning all summer.
I agree. We should attack it from all angles. And we all have work to do on that.
Solar ain't gonna make it.
Well, the point I'm making is we spend tons of money on energy already, right? And I think that we're going to see through this RFP process, I think we're going to get a lot of great proposals, especially if we, do by working with some of the other agencies, there'll be more facilities, and I think that will attract more interest from this sector. Is my optimistic hunch. So I'm excited about it, and I think the community is going to be very excited about it. And we're not going to get to our goal in one step. No doubt there'll be more iterations of these kinds of things in the future. But I think we should launch in a strong way. And this is a great start. So, other questions or thoughts? All right, Jeremiah, thank you so much. Great idea.
Absolutely.
All right. Just one other, as Jeremiah's walking, just one other thing I would just plug, and I know we've got that based on it before too, but and it's a group we all like. But the Energy Savers Network Organization, which is one of the groups that does the weatherization. I don't know if you guys see stuff they post on Facebook ever, but it is like, I just think it's so cool. I mean, they're just out there all the time, and they've got all these volunteers going out and working folks home. So I know y'all probably see that stuff too, but and kudos to all those volunteers for helping make it happen. But I'm glad it's one of the organizations that we're partnering with. All right, what is next? Josh Freeman.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
All right, we have 4 rezoning proposals that are coming before you at your August 6th meeting. So what I'm doing today is just giving you a really brief overview of those so you can be prepared when they come
So
in August.
I have a question before we dive into this. So these will be public hearings, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess I just, we had sort of a discussion about this at the last meeting, but I just, I appreciate us kind of having a chance to review some things before we vote on them, but I'm kind of wondering if we feel like it's appropriate to review these rezoning issues, just internally. We're not making any decision today, but you certainly start forming opinions and having, a lot of the dialogue here when we don't have, we're not having the public hearing, we don't have the property owners here, so this concern's been raised, and I just kind of wanted to surface it, just kind of have a little discussion about it.
I would share your concern.
Yes, and then, as a matter of fact, the folks behind us has raised that concern as well.
Yeah, I would share that.
So, and we have talked about it, and what they will show you today is just the maps, there's no other conversation. We changed the agenda item, and this would not be on your next going forward, this will be the last time we'll talk about these. But I've also conferred with legal, and these are not the quasi-judicials. If they were, they would not be here today. These are just straight rezoning, so there's nothing illegal or wrong with doing them. So, but certainly open to y'all's conversations. That would be fine.
Okay, but we're not planning on kind of in the future doing more of these. Okay. I think that's the right approach. Any other comments?
Okay, not doing it today.
Well, we've already got Josh up here. But I'll do whatever. Any other opinions on this, commissioners? Okay. We got one lean no.
There, if the people aren't here today, I kind of support what you're saying. I'd be more comfortable with talking about the problems.
This is
Just
just
to
a
cover that.
preview, sort of informational, laying the groundwork. I feel comfortable with that today, personally.
Let's just have high level information, but it's been,
So, if you didn't get the hint, we just saved you a bunch of time, so you got to highlight this.
go ahead, Josh.
I have to go back to the office. Okay, so the first application, the applicants are Mr. and Mrs. Uharka. They came before you some time ago, went to the planning board yesterday, we're back in August. The application is to rezone. The original request was a 14-acre rezoning from RLD, which is a residential low density district, to R1. Based on dialogue with both boards and staff, the applicants reduced the application to a 1.7-acre request. And just for anyone who's not aware, this is in Swannanoa, just west of Owen High School. So that is the first application, and I'm going to move through these quickly if you need me to come back over that. The second application is Radisson or Freedom in Christ, similar to the previous. It was before the planning board twice. The planning board considered it, the applicant withdrew, came back with a revised request. So it started off as a roughly 60-acre request from residential low density to R3 residential. They've since revised that down to roughly 20 acres in size. This project is in Lower Hominy. It's west of Asheville and north of I-40. And again, it's RLD to R3. Lois McDonald and her family have requested rezoning. It's a roughly 6-acre tract. It's off Long Shoals Road in Hardin, just west of Avery Creek Hospital and Oak Grove Christian Church. The request is to rezone the property from R2 residential to neighborhood services. Commercial neighborhood services is our sort of lowest intensity commercial zoning district. And the planning board again considered this yesterday, and you'll see it in August. And last but not least, Rebecca Regal has requested rezoning a property from R2 residential to EMP. EMP is your highest intensity kind of commercial/industrial zoning district. This is a 1.2-acre tract, Avery's Creek off Brevard Road, just north of the Long Shoals Brevard Road intersection. Are there any questions?
All right. So we'll take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
a quick update, moving towards the August 6th meeting. We're requesting a public hearing for the Mountain Community Capital Fund. This public hearing is not a request for any new funding, it's also not a request for a board vote. If you remember recently, related to economic development agreements, we realized the general statutes require that we have a public hearing for any spending in the current budget year. So this is one item where we're coming to you, we'll host a public hearing, just to allow the public to comment on the program, but we'll not be asking for your vote, because you've already voted on this on numerous occasions. As way of reminder, August 17th, 2017, you approved